What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in today's video I'm going to be putting together a PC build that you can actually buy right now in 2021, with the answer to our PC building woes coming from an unlikely source. In this video, I'm going to run you through all the components we chose and why, show you guys real-time pricing where you can actually buy these components at decent prices before booting the machine up and seeing how it performs in some of the biggest titles out there. Without any further ado though, let's dive into it, after a quick word from today's video sponsor. The Corsair K70 RGB 10 keyless Champion Series keyboard is one of Corsair's latest releases, and builds a keyboard in an awesome 10 keyless form factor. The Champion range has been specifically developed with top esports pros and builds on years of testing. RGB can be easily customized in Corsair iCUE as usual, while durable PBT double shot keycaps and Cherry MX switches guaranteed for 100 million keystrokes keep you on top of your game. Learn more at the link in the description below. I'm going to come back to the GPU choice in today's build a little bit later, and as always kick things off by installing as many components into the motherboard as we possibly can. For those of you who don't know, the motherboard forms the basis of any PC. It's what connects all of the other components together, and here you've got a few options. My first choice would be GeekaByte's B450M S2H, though they also do a DS3H and lots of other variations that are actually pretty similar. This board is a great choice as it supports overclocking, supports the latest Ryzen CPUs, and comes in at a favourable price point. A more expensive B550 option is available, which is definitely worth a look, and equally a cheaper A320 option with a cheaper chipset is also doable. The most important things to look out for on a motherboard like this is of course an AM4 socket for Ryzen CPUs, a PCIe Gen 3 slot for the graphics card, and then an M.2 slot for a super fast NVMe drive. For the CPU in this system, I've gone for a brand new, not a used, Ryzen 5 1600. AMD have recently released a 1600AF, which is a better option if you can get your hands on it, but I find the 1600 is more readily available and in stock. It's a 6-core 12-thread CPU with some decent clock speeds, and is easily installed in the motherboard today. You don't need any force or any pressure, simply drop the CPU into the socket, a little something like that, and return the arm down. In terms of the CPU cooler, I've opted to stick with the Ryzen stock cooler. This comes included with the CPU for free, which is pretty amazing, right? And it's actually a really decent option. You're not really going to get much overclocking headroom on a stock cooler, but it will allow the CPU to boost up to its maximum stock speeds. The stock cooler is a little bit louder than an aftermarket cooler, but will save you about $25. Typically, this will come with pre-applied thermal paste, so no need to worry about applying your own. Installing the stock cooler is really easy. It's just going to line up with the 4 backplate holes through the motherboard, and then tighten up in a cross pattern, making sure you're spreading evenly the load across the cooler. The next component to install into the motherboard to progress our build nicely along is the RAM or the memory. This is from XPG, and it's their Gamix D20. A 16GB kit of 3600MHz RAM is perfect for this system, and the last time I checked, this came in around $85 US, which is an absolute bargain for RAM like this. We're going to line up the notch on the gold contact strip of the memory with the corresponding notch on the RAM DIMM slot just here, and pull back all of our retention clips. Slide the DIMM nicely into place, apply a bit of pressure with each of your thumbs, and repeat for as many RAM DIMMs as you've got. We are of course filling up both the RAM DIMM slots on the motherboard, but because we've gone for 16GB, this is going to be enough for you to upgrade the system to say an RTX 3060 later on and have no issues, so future-proofing is all sorted. The next component we're going to install into the motherboard, and the final one before we can move this into the case choice today, is the storage. We've done the short-term memory, but what about the longer-term solution? Well, my friends, Seagate Seagate have got us covered off with their Barracuda 510. It's an M.2 drive, meaning it sits in this nice rectangular form factor and just installs directly into the motherboard. No SATA data or power cables to worry about. It's a Gen 3 drive as well, which means we should get speeds in the region of around about 3.5 gigabytes per second. You heard me right, this drive is pretty rapid and is the fastest that the motherboard we've chosen can support today. 500 gigabyte or 1 terabyte capacities would be my go-to, and while you could beef this build up with a hard drive later, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Simply put, for most people, a 1 terabyte SSD is going to be enough for the games that you're playing. Of course, if you're hoarding your Steam library from the last 10 years, you might have a few more problems, but most people will be a-okay. Find the little notch on the gold contact strip. This is a pretty similar story to with the RAM today, and then just slide this into the M.2 slot. You might need to angle the drive in at a 45-degree angle, and then you can secure it right back down. As I said earlier, the connection is super simple, and this will handle the power and the data, and it's basically all good to go. And with that, the motherboard is actually all built up and complete. We've installed basically 4 of the components today and only actually have 3 more to go. We're going to move the motherboard into the case today, and for that, I've got a pretty exciting option. Coming in from Techware, the brand that make those awesome budget mechanical keyboards, this Forge M chassis is going to be an awesome choice. With a mesh panel at the front, some included RGB fans, and a fantastic micro ATX form factor that's big enough for all of our components, big enough for future upgrades, but not massive in a setup or on a desk. It's the perfect option. The mesh finish as well on the front is going to make sure temperatures stay nice and low and provide plenty of airflow for the stock cooler. Graphics card support is also pretty decent, and room for a full-size ATX power supply helps us save a little bit of money over smaller units which tend to cost more. I actually used this chassis in one of my recent higher-end RTX builds, which you can find in the card section now. The tempered glass panel though is a really nice addition, and we're just going to remove this and the rear panel to make screwing in the motherboard that little bit easier. We're going to go ahead and slot the motherboard into place, and there's a really easy way to get this right. Find each of the holes through the motherboard, circled on your screen now, and correlate these to the standoffs inside the case, also nicely circled. These circles should line up. If they don't, you will just have to move a couple of the standoffs around to make way for the motherboard to be installed into place. But wait, there is one thing we are forgetting. On cheaper motherboards, you actually have to install an I/O shield. On more expensive boards, it just comes pre-built into the rear. But for us today, it does not. So locate the sharp metal plate that comes with your motherboard inside the box and find the circular audio ports. These are going to be located at the bottom, and the I/O shield is going to slot into the back of the case. A little something like this. Can we do it first time? Oh yes, we can. Lovely stuff. And that will allow us to slide the ports on the motherboard through the I/O shield and make sure everything's in the right location. Awesome stuff. So the motherboard is installed and the build is really starting to come together. Everything to me feels pretty well proportioned, and so far, so good. I'm going to take this opportunity to cover off the graphics card choice for today's build as the next component on our to-do list. Now, GPUs have been really difficult to buy for nearly a year now, ever since RTX 3000 dropped in September, and everyone who'd been waiting to buy a GPU went to the shops to pick one up. The market's just been a complete mess. And that's made budget builds just like this one particularly hard. Could a GTX 970 actually be the answer that we've been waiting for in a build like this? Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, James, you have well and truly lost your mind this time around. But hear me out. Lots of people are picking up GTX 1650s on eBay for nearly $300 or maybe more for their budget builds. And the 970 actually has pretty decent performance when compared to those really low-end GPUs from the last generation. With 4 gigabytes of video memory, a really solid MSI cooler, and a nice rear I/O, it could make a great choice. Plus the fact that the hash rate on this card, which is the important metric for miners, is super low, means you can get some good deals on these secondhand on eBay and Craigslist. It also means that the secondhand cards you do buy are unlikely to have been used for GPU mining, though obviously nothing is guaranteed. We'll be testing out the performance of this card in detail a little bit later, so hold tight. But let's get it installed and see how it looks. This card is honestly taking me back to like my PC building roots, ladies and gents. It's quite exciting. Fun fact, this is actually the card I wanted for my first ever PC build, but I could never afford it. So At least I'm getting hands-on with it now. Hey, it fits. I mean, I don't know why it wouldn't fit, but it's looking pretty good. I do miss the black and red MSI Dragon design. MSI, if you're watching, I'd love you to bring that back as like a nostalgia GPU. I mean, there's big enough GPU supply issues at the moment, so maybe not right now, but when they do normalize, I'd love to see a black and red twin Frozat return. And that brings us nicely on to the power supply today, the final component of all in this system. Now, this power supply doesn't actually come with a box. That's how cheap it is. But I'm not complaining. This is Coolermaster's MWE 500. If you wanted to make sure you've got the future-proofing in this system for a higher-end GPU, then a 650 watt unit is probably a better shout. But for this system in its current spec, this power supply will work wow. The CPU is really power efficient, we haven't got loads of drives, and the GPU is hardly the most power hungry of things to have ever existed. Let's go ahead and get the power supply installed, everything nicely plugged up, and then cable manage our system before we finally turn it on to see just how good it looks, and then of course how it performs. As you guys know here on the channel though, there's only one way to see how good it looks when it's all powered up, and that's in an epic glam montage. I'll see you in the benchmark section, but roll that montage. Awesome stuff. So we've seen how good this pretty unique system looks when it's all powered up with that GTX 970, but should you actually build it? Is the 970 actually a legitimately good option in 2021 on the used market? Rather than the typical benchmark format, I'm going to do some of these live today to really check out what kind of performance we're able to get. I've loaded up GTA 5 first and foremost, and let's take a look at some of the graphical settings we're going to be using. So I've gone for 1080p, and then I've basically gone for medium or normal settings. I don't want to push the system too far, of course. Our Ryzen 5 1600's not the world's most powerful CPU either, so that obviously plays a part. But let's run the benchmark mode and see what kind of FPS we're actually able to get. Hang on a second, we're sitting at 160, 150 frames per second on the 970. That is so much better than I was expecting. Obviously, I have gone ahead and tuned down some of the settings at 1080p, and the 970 was 180 FPS. The 970 was a powerful card in its day. You can see from the FPS graph though, that is pretty solid 160 frames a second fairly consistently. This budget build is really showing its might, and this is definitely a better option, I think, than going for a 1650, which probably costs a similar amount secondhand on eBay. So definitely something to bear in mind with the 970. Even moving into this longer sequence, the CPU is only at about 60 degrees Celsius with the stock cooler. The GPU's sit at about 63 degrees as well, and the frame rate is really quite consistent at that 160 FPS mark. Visually, the game looks pretty good, and we could crank it up to high settings, I would imagine, and still stay above the 60 FPS at very minimum. Quite comfortably guess that tuning up to high settings would still give us well over 60 FPS at minimum, as we conclude the benchmark at around 140. That is actually really impressive. That has genuinely surprised me quite a lot. The next title I want to try out today is a little bit of Overwatch. So we're currently running at 1080p, we're on high settings, so about midway actually when you consider that there's not only Ultra, but also Epic available. We have, of course, in our advanced settings, set everything to medium to high settings, disabled VSync, and make sure we can get the maximum FPS. Let's turn the cap right up to 400 frames a second, and once again running MSI Afterburner's Reaver Tuner in the top left to see what kind of numbers we're able to get. Let's jump into a game and see what happens. Straight off the bat, we are sitting around about 140, 150 frames a second. Let's see how that actually changes. Once we encounter the other team, it's likely to probably drop at least a little bit. Here we go. Still sitting around 150, 155 FPS, 160 frames a second. I don't know where my team are. I have no idea where they've gone. Shield, 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 shield. Come on. Oh, no. There we go. Beautiful stuff. Visually as well, the game looks really fantastic. This 970 is actually blowing me away. I think we all get so obsessed nowadays with RTX 3000 this and AMD 6000 series that we forget just how capable a graphics card a 970 still is in 2021. We are getting absolutely annihilated here. Let's just retreat. Holy moly, pop a shield. But all in all, looks pretty good. I think we have actually lost the game, but visually it looks fantastic. And Overwatch on the 970 is a great success. Overwatch isn't the only title though where the 970 proves powerful. Next up, let's try a little bit of Fortnite. So as you can see here, we're running at 1080p competitive settings where everything is tuned down to low, but the render distance is set to far so that we can see all of the other teams off in the distance. Already then, we're sitting at around about 160 frames per second, which is not too bad. And the frame rate, looking at the graph, is super solid, around the 150, 160 frames a second mark. My team have scattered absolutely everywhere though, which is always helpful. So let's go and track them down. Got a whole squad to fend off and it's not looking particularly positive, but we're still sitting around 170, 180 frames a second. Can I hide out the way? Can I be sneaky? Probably not. That's not looking likely, is it? Oh, no, that's not gone to plan. Either way though, frame rate is good, and once again the 970 is really impressive here. It's not just Fortnite, Overwatch and GTA 5 though that perform surprisingly well on this system. Apex Legends gave us some solid results at 1080p, medium to high settings. And it's a similar story with the likes of Valorant. Okay, it's an easy to run game like CSGO, which, surprise, surprise, also worked well, but it is a really popular esports title. We also tried out Rainbow Six Siege using the game's inbuilt benchmarking mode and got pretty impressive results here as well, which just goes to show that the 970 might actually be the hidden gem that we're all looking for in 2021. Available for around the same price or a little bit more than a 1650 if you're prepared to go for an older GPU. Gaming performance really is yours for the taking. I'll link all the components for today's build in the description below, and all of the full benchmarks can be found on our benchmarking channel, linked in the cards now. Thank you very much for watching though, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.